You could see a large group of people with their hands up walking away from the officers, and you can see now officers are tightening their ranks there on the people who had gathered to protest.
The officers that you see at the bottom of your screen, I believe this is still Bobby and Steve's, in that corner. That would be the entrance ramp up from 35W South up to where Bobby and Steve's is located. If we pull out just a little bit, if I've got my bearings right, yep, there's Bobby and Steve's. So they have come up that entrance ramp down from below, although there is a group down below as well. You see them moving down there on the interstate as well. But what they've done is they've come up both sides and basically surrounded those protesters on the side, the Washington Avenue side of Bobby and Steve's. Keep in mind, there's a lot of residential area down there, apartment buildings, condos in that area down there. A lot of people live in that area. So as they push, and the U.S. Bank is down in that area to the left of Bobby and Steve's, down Washington Avenue and to the left. So there's a lot of, and you can see police there behind on the other side of that street down there. You can see the flashing of the police. So they're moving in. You can see them right there on the bottom of your screen with Boyd's camera. And they're moving vehicles up. There they go, moving vehicles up as well, and they're taking off. They may trap them at Bobby and Steve's, you know, in that parking lot area, because there's a fence there, as Lauren showed us.
Yeah, let's go to Lauren right now. She is safely on the other side, we believe, of the police line. Lauren?
Yes, we're here. Officers are giving us instructions as to where we're going. We're showing them our press passes, and they are giving us instructions as to where we're going. They had the crowd all really penned in. Now they've started with the non-lethal rounds that they're firing. The crowd basically was running in every direction, trying to figure out where they were going, but police officers did have them completely surrounded. And so at that point, they were running. We started to walk in a way that we thought was safe, and then people were saying, no, no, get back the other way. The police said that they're coming over the fence at them. The crowd wound up almost in a circle. Police surrounded them. They are, at this point, the police officers outnumber the protesters, I would say. And then we just saw the protesters running across the street, which you can see. So far tonight, we have seen just 3 arrests. I don't know, I can't really see from my vantage point what's happening now. I can't see if anyone has been hit with non-lethal rounds. You can smell the tear gas in the air, and you can certainly feel the tension.
Yeah, Lauren, listen, we've got a view.
Randy.
We got a view from Boyd's camera. And on the other side of Bobby and Steve's on Washington, they are pushing, they're compressing this group into that Bobby and Steve's parking lot area, it looks like. So they're really kind of trapped. They've got nowhere to go. They've come up the entrance ramp. So really the point of arrest here now looks like it's going to be in that parking lot of Bobby and Steve's, with really, for these protesters, there's really nowhere to go. There are vehicles now being brought up there as well by police. So they are, you know, tactically now they have kind of, they've surrounded them in this parking lot.
Yeah. And Randy, you can probably see there, just the sheer number of law enforcement here is really astonishing. Everywhere we look, there seemed to be another 20 police officers coming at us. And they were, you know, they did what they had said, that they were going to tactically try and separate the big group, but now they seem, as you mentioned, to have them surrounded. In the past, officers have said they were outnumbered by protesters. This is not the case here. And while we never saw anyone get violent, we have not seen anyone fight back against the police. We've seen them disobey orders to leave, but no one has gotten violent or fought back against police. And police, you know, we haven't seen them really come in at protesters in that way, but they have certainly used their non-lethal rounds. They have used chemical irritants and tear gas. We have felt it. We can smell it in the air. And at a point, really, you just saw these protesters screaming and running. And so it was clear they knew that police had them surrounded. And now you'll see better than I am what the arrests are happening and if those are peaceful or not. The arrests we saw earlier, there was no resistance. Police had them handcuffed. It was pretty run-of-the-mill arrest. But you know, this is.
I know you don't have a
what's happening
monitor
here on the Washington Avenue Bridge right now.
Yeah, I know you don't have a monitor, but we see from Sky 11 that the law enforcement has completely surrounded them in the parking lot on the Washington Avenue. And I can't tell how many protesters are there, maybe 50, 60 at the most. but they're going nowhere. They're trapped in that parking lot
Right.
at this point. So it's just a matter of time as to when they move in to arrest people and all that. And I don't see any like buses to put arrested people in at this point. We're not, but yeah, they are completely surrounded.
You know, it might be wise at this point to talk about some of the headlines that were made today. Some of the things these protesters have been asking for justice for George Floyd, one of which is that all of the officers involved be arrested. We know the man who had his knee on George Floyd's neck has been charged with third-degree murder. Another thing that the protesters had been asking for was that Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman be taken off the case. Some had asked for him to resign, but others were saying, we don't want him, including George Floyd's family, had asked that he not be the lead prosecutor on this case. And we learned today that Attorney General Keith Ellison is now in charge of the criminal trial of former officer Chauvin. So some of the things that these protesters have demanded have happened, and now we will just see how all of that plays out. We're understanding the Hennepin County Attorney will be working in conjunction with the Attorney General, but this is definitely now the Attorney General's case, which is something that the protesters and George Floyd's family had demanded. They were marching today saying no bail for this former officer who is now in custody. They do not want him to be released pending trial. They also want the other officers who were on scene to be arrested. These are the reasons that they've been marching today, and we watched those marches unfold peacefully. They were inspiring. There were beautiful moments and a lot of unity throughout the day today. So while we're focusing on this right now because it's live and it's all happening right now, we want you to know we have been on the air for hours covering many different peaceful protests, rallies, and marches. So that's an important part of the story too. And the reason that these protesters are out here today, of course, for the last 50 minutes, they've been breaking the law because they're out past curfew. And law enforcement and the governor has said, we're just not going to stand for that because we can't tell the good guys from the bad guys, frankly, once the sun goes down and things start going south. So everyone has been made aware that if you stay out past curfew, these are the consequences. They're consequences that these protesters have decided that they want to live with, and that's a choice that they're making tonight. We did see last night that police were very effective in breaking up large groups. It wasn't that we noticed or had large amounts of arrests, but the police were very effective in getting the groups separated, so there were just a few small groups that they were dealing with instead of several large groups of protesters. But Randy, important to point out as well that the rallies and marches today were tens of thousands of people. A lot more people were out on the streets today than were last night.
Well, we saw it on the bridge before the truck incident. It was a massive crowd, and it was a peaceful crowd. The entire time it's all been peaceful. Even this group that's surrounded here right now has been peaceful. And you're right. If they're arrested, it'll be for the curfew. It won't be for anything else. All right, let's go back to Lauren. Lauren?
Hi, you guys. I just want to update you about what's happening. We now do hear a loudspeaker. The announcement was, this is the Minnesota State Patrol. We have this parking lot surrounded. Get down on the ground now. You are under arrest. So they are making arrests right now as we speak. Behind us, there is a bus rolling up, which appears like it is here to take these protesters into custody. And I think Julie made a really interesting point there, that these were peaceful protests all day. I've been talking to these protesters. George Floyd, that name is on their lips. They have been talking about the need for change in the system. They were here to make a point, and many of them may have decided that civil disobedience and being arrested was how they were going to make that point tonight. They certainly were not in a hurry to leave when police officers wanted them to, and now that is happening. Police are telling them, lay on the ground. We are coming to arrest you. Now, I can't see. We have moved back, as police asked us to, away from where this is happening. So we can't tell what's happening. We know about in that parking lot. You perhaps can from your vantage point view. But we do know that about 4 times now we have heard on the loudspeaker, this is the Minnesota State Patrol. Get down on the ground. You are under arrest now. At the same time, behind me, I'm now hearing people chanting George Floyd. So these are people who apparently either got away from the crowd before, or people who have just come to see and are supportive of the protesters. A little hard to tell, There's a lot of chaos here. Or not chaos is probably the wrong word. There's just a lot of people around and a lot of cars around, so it's hard to necessarily always tell who's who. But
Lauren, can
what
you
I can tell you is right now.
Can you tell if
Yeah.
the protesters
Go ahead,
are
Julie.
laying down? When they're saying lay down, is anyone complying with that? Can you tell, or are you too far away?
No, I'm too far away. I'm about a half a block down. We've spent the entire time in the parking lot of that gas station, but then they asked us to move back, as we were showing our press passes. So we cannot see what's happening in there. I know they've made the request multiple times. I can't tell if people are laying down. What I can tell is that police have not per se moved in to subdue the crowd. Right? So we haven't seen any sort of commotion from the back of the police line here, and we are behind the police line. Perhaps from an aerial view, we'll be able to tell if they are laying down. But right now, at least, what we know is that they've made the announcement multiple times, and we can't tell if folks are laying down to be arrested at this point.
I'm not sure if Boyd's camera, which is across the interstate, has a better view of what we're looking at, and can see this is Boyd's camera, which is on the rooftop across the street. Again, hard to really kind of decipher whether people are on their knees or down, but you can certainly see all the officers, you can certainly see all the vehicles. And our chopper is probably our best view. Again, this is Boyd's camera. Boyd, go ahead.
Yeah, my view is somewhat blocked too, Randy, of the actual process for arresting these protesters who refuse to disperse. I'm looking mostly at the backs of officers. It's one of those things where there were probably some people in that group who expected to get arrested, and then others who thought there was still time to run, but their judgment was flawed if that was their intention, because at some point they just decided no one was going to leave, and when they did start shooting off those concussion grenades, you could see a number of people, just trying to get away, and then at that point the entire area had been surrounded by officers, so they just pushed them back up into the parking lot from where they had come. We saw officers behind the gas station, actually a row of them. They were going back there just to check and see if, it looked like checking to see if people were hiding in the bushes behind the gas station. If once you cross that point of no return, your odds of getting out of here were probably pretty thin. There are plenty of law enforcement personnel who are going to execute the order to take these folks into custody.
It looks like we've got some officers maybe now approaching to make those arrests. And this, of course, is a moment where things have the potential to go sideways. So we're hoping that they're able to make some peaceful arrests. We've been seeing so many nights of unrest here in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and have been so fortunate that there have not been serious injuries, especially considering today we had a semi drive down 35 with thousands of protesters on the interstate. And even in that instance, it doesn't appear that anyone was seriously hurt, including the truck driver. So we're hoping we can see the same thing play out here tonight. Minneapolis police just tweeted that the group on Washington Avenue has been encircled by law enforcement. One firearm has been recovered near the location of that group. So they are now doing a much better job of keeping all of us and all of you at home informed. I would say both Minneapolis, St. Paul, and on a statewide level of what's happening as things are happening. We know that the law enforcement presence tonight will be just as large as it was last night. And we talked with the Minnesota National Guard earlier, who said they have the ability to move. They're pretty agile, so they have the ability to move quickly wherever they need to go, even if that means outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we definitely saw that last night. We had reporters on the scene who would be standing there saying everything is peaceful, and all of a sudden the entire convoy of law enforcement would start moving quickly and going down the street together. So assuming those will be the same tactics that they're using tonight. But as we watch this unfold, this is Minneapolis right now. Watching this live on the KARE 11 app, or you're streaming this, it's going to go dark We're just refreshing. It's going to be right back. So don't worry. If you're watching us and you're streaming us, not over the air, but streaming us, don't worry. It's going to come back quickly, but we just want to let you know there'll be a little glitch coming up here at 9 o'clock. It seems very quiet there, Boyd. I know you're a ways away, but how would you describe the feeling?
We're seeing more tear gas, actually, Julie. There's another row of officers, and I'm going to have Devin, my photographer, just pan over to the other scene that we're watching. So this is on the opposite side of that Washington Avenue overpass, and these officers are lined up. And we just saw tear gas wafting up over the side of the building. They're shooting some more off now. So we presume that there is another group of protesters, perhaps, that have refused to disperse just down Washington Avenue. We're going to presume that's what's happening because they're shooting that tear gas off, and I'm expecting we're going to see another round of arrests down on this end of the bridge.
It would be interesting, and of course we can't be in two places at once with our helicopter, and it's been focused on Bobby and Steve's, but these guys, these law enforcement officers are pointed the opposite direction into the Seven Corners area, where there's a hotel and restaurants and bars and places like that. There isn't really, I mean, you can get out of that area, but it'd be interesting to see what's happening in that area if officers have come up from the backside of the... We can certainly see the
gas, Randy.
What's that?
Well, we can see the gas. We can't see the people because it's obstructed by a building, but we're definitely seeing the gas that's coming up a couple hundred feet down the street from the officers that you're looking at, or you have been looking at, and they're not shooting that obviously into emptiness, so there are some people out of our view right now that gas is being aimed at.
Boyd, we're going to take a little different view here. We have our Danny Spiewak at the Government Center, who has a different, Gordon Severson, who's at the Government Center for a little different angle on what's happening. Gordon?
Yeah, we're here at the Government Center where a large group has stopped inside the Government Center, and a couple other groups fragmented from this main group. But we've seen a lot of military presence and police officers kind of setting up a perimeter around the Government Center courtyard. We're moving away to get out of this area, but it looks like this might be the next place where officers make another round of arrests. But this group obviously is much bigger than the 50 to 60 people you were mentioning on Washington Avenue. This is several hundred people here that are in this courtyard here right now.
One of the issues there too, Gordon, as we can tell,
and as you can see, the crews are just
it's getting dark, and so
the people are dispersing. We saw a couple hundred take off running earlier, so this is definitely fragmenting this large group.
Are officers at all moving them in a direction, or are they just moving on their own?
They're moving on their own, kind of reacting to their presence, kind of knowing that something's coming. We haven't, at least with this group and this event here, we haven't seen any tear gas or any movement or lines that have been formed by law enforcement to kind of push people one way or another. We did kind of see the beginnings of that, and it looks like this group kind of saw that coming and decided to take off before they kind of boxed everyone in.
Give us a point of reference. Where are they moving to? What's the cross street? What's the street they're moving on?
Well, the cross street right here is we're on 4th Avenue, and 6th Street is the corner right here that they're moving on to 6th Street, heading away from the Government Center. Back towards U.S. Bank Stadium.
And this is where that group started, correct? Or in that general vicinity?
Correct, that's where this group started.
Mostly peaceful, right?
And these officers that we're seeing are not police officers. They have bigger equipment, more bigger presence, higher numbers, and they're not in black. They are in tan. So I haven't been able to see exactly what group they're from, but I do know it's not Minneapolis Police and it is not State Patrol.
Well, we do know that the governor signed an executive order to work with many other law enforcement agencies around the metro area. to help them get some feet on the ground there. Let's go back to Lauren Lemanchek for a moment because we'll check in on what's happening at that scene. Lauren?
Yeah, Julie, we were able to move and get a little better vantage point. I'm going to step aside. That is that parking lot of Bobby and Steve's. They are in there making arrests. We've seen them walk people away in handcuffs. We can hear them shouting, "Get down, stay down." There is some commotion, but it doesn't appear as though any serious commotion where people are really fighting arrest. But if you can see through there, they are in there taking people into custody. And then there's this large bus over here and some vans where they have people where they're taking them once they're arrested inside the Bobby and Steve's parking lot. But I think what's just really remarkable about this is to see the force that is here, this massive presence of National Guard. There's a Humvee here. There is State Patrol. There is Minneapolis Police, and they are all here surrounding these protesters. At this point, as I've been pointing out, I think that there's far more police officers here than protesters, and this sort of was the same method that they used last night, right, where they were going to separate these groups, make them smaller, take them into custody. So just kind of take this scene in. This is what's happening. And as I think I've mentioned, a lot of these protesters seemed very ready to be arrested tonight. They did try and run from police. They tried to run away. Police had them surrounded at all ends. They hopped a fence, saw police, hopped right back over, and then the rubber bullets came from over that fence. So police did get them surrounded, but many of them were here. They didn't plan on necessarily fighting back, but they also didn't plan on going home, and now they've decided to accept the consequences of that, which is arrest here tonight.
I know.
And as I mentioned, in that group, go ahead, J. Randy, sorry.
I was just going to say, I know you're not in a great vantage point to look down the other way of Washington Avenue, but Boyd was talking about officers setting up on the other side of the bridge, looking into the Seven Corners area. Are you getting any sense of, have you been hearing tear gas being fired, any sense at all, or are you just too far away?
I'm too far away to see anything. I know I was jarred for a moment because I heard another bang, and I guess my ear isn't trained well enough to know if it was tear gas or a rubber bullet or what it was, or a flashbang. But I did hear another noise, and it startled me because I thought nothing's really going on over here. Why would they do that? And then we realized it did appear it was coming from the other side of the bridge. So something was happening there. I just am not sure. Now I want to show you what's happening. Police seem to be walking this way. Our photojournalist Adam just pointed it out. And I'm not sure if they're walking toward another group here. There's a lot of officers sort of milling about and maybe not moving with a lot of urgency. But anyway, we thought they may be headed to confront another group, but it doesn't seem as if that is happening right now. But again, on the other side of that Washington Avenue bridge, we did hear some sort of a bang, and it was coming from that side of the bridge. Here, you can see this scene is very much under control, with police flooding the parking lot of this Bobby and Steve's and keeping these protesters penned in. They are on the ground. They are one by one being arrested and led into waiting vans and buses.
I think it's
police
safe.
are mobilizing for something here,
Yeah,
and I don't know what it is, but
Well,
maybe you guys have a better idea.
I think it might be the group that Gordon's been following, because that group was down by the government center. They're making their way back towards U.S. Bank, so you're not that far away from U.S. Bank Stadium. And if that group,
No, we're just about 2 blocks from there.
if that line of law enforcement is heading that direction, and the group that's pushing them towards U.S. Bank is coming from that way, it would make sense that they would begin to surround that group over by U.S. Bank.
Yeah, and as we watch this...
Yeah, it certainly does, because this is under control.
Yep.
Lauren, as we watch this, we'd been talking earlier about last night that there were people, once the sun went down, and there was that large police presence in even residential areas last night in Minneapolis. A lot of people had seen that video of a non-lethal round being fired at people who are on their own porch, watching police go down that street, presumably to clear that street. Officers saying, "Go inside, go inside."
individuals, well, I see something on the ground. There's some bikes in the way, so I can't be 100% sure what I am seeing. I don't see where they are taking them, though, not from my vantage point.
Okay, that's Callan Gray reporting. She is very near the scene where the remnants of the demonstrators who've been marching peacefully all day long in downtown Minneapolis are being arrested. And I've been getting a couple of messages about this. What's the penalty for breaking curfew? It's a misdemeanor. Okay. And that's according to a tweet from the Minneapolis police. And so they are all being taken away. They'll be booked and charged, searched. Again, they found one weapon in this group that had been penned into the parking lot. And I know this is a very dark shot there, but this is the Bobby and Steve's mobile station, which is a very familiar site there. And just across 35 from there is the West Bank of the University of Minnesota. And of course, just a few blocks from there is also US Bank Stadium.
We had sunset, 8:52 this evening, so we are under darkness, so it is hard to see what's going on here. But Kevin, you saying that, this is a misdemeanor for these folks, and they wanted to be peaceful protesters. So they did that, and I guess you weigh it out. You want to, for your cause, if you want to do that. And we understand that people right now want to make their voices heard.
And it's important to note that we haven't seen the clash with law enforcement with this group. Yeah. They appear to be, kind of boxed in an area. There doesn't appear to be a confrontation with police. Police aren't using pepper spray or deploying tear gas right now. So, yeah, it seems to be a situation that is under control. Yeah, it is. Well, and I think we want to go now. So from this to the other part of this story that happened earlier. This is Eric Chaloux, and he was there when a driver in a truck headed towards a crowd of people. Eric, quite a scene.
Thousands of people, Paul, marching for George Floyd, a peaceful protest this afternoon. Now, the Department of Public Safety saying law enforcement is investigating why that semi-truck driver drove onto the bridge before 6 o'clock. We're right here, 35W Bridge. You can see behind me, this has been now a staging area for law enforcement after they cleared the bridge. You can see members of the Minnesota National Guard. There's a lot of, those are sheriff's deputies from neighboring counties that are in to help out in the Twin Cities. We just saw a Metro bus that had some of those special officers inside, but that's where we are now. This is the scene. But earlier, I wanted to show you some video. The camera was rolling as the truck drove onto the bridge. Those protesters had been through downtown Minneapolis since before 4 o'clock. I'm hoping that we do have that video that you can watch to show this truck. Very difficult situation when we were on the bridge. We saw people running towards us. They were trying to get away from that truck. We were on the southbound lanes of 35W Bridge when the truck was trying to go on the northbound side into those protesters. I'm not sure, I'm not hearing if you guys can see that video at this point, but we have put together some new interviews. I'd like you to take a listen to one of the people that was on the bridge.
Gear and advance further and faster and harder, but people were just trying to stop him any way they could. There was people in between trying to disconnect his gasoline tanker, so it was slashing his tires. It was nuts.
Yeah, you're going to hear shortly from another man that was on the bridge at that time when that semi came across. They pulled a girl away from that truck right before it came onto the bridge. As I mentioned, law enforcement now investigating as to why that truck driver came onto the bridge with thousands of protesters here earlier this afternoon. Again, no reports of any serious injuries, which is so very thankful after the amount of people that were on the bridge like we were when that truck came across this afternoon. We're going to get you some more interviews that we got from folks on the bridge, some very emotional ones coming up throughout the evening. But that's the very latest here in Minneapolis. Eric Chaloux, 5 Eyewitness News.
Just an unbelievable scene there. Thank you for your reporting on that, Eric. We want to go to our Callan Gray now. It's my understanding that you can actually see arrests being made in front of where you're at, Callan. What are you seeing?
So you had asked me earlier where these individuals were being taken, and we are getting a front row seat to that right now. A bus has pulled up, and we are seeing individuals being, from where they're being laid down on the ground, being brought up and walked over to this bus here with the black windows. I'm going to step out of the way so our photographer Kevin here can give you a better shot of it. They are coming down from Bobby and Steve's. The bus is parked almost right here at the corner of South Washington and 12th. And that is where you can see there is a firm line of police not allowing us to get closer. But we've probably seen 3 or 4 people already being walked over to this bus. Just minutes after we gave our last live report, I had also seen
It's free, like right next to the tree. What's the car? Yeah, young, I'm ready to take a picture in this bitch. Hey, I'm ready to
We need a woman. Where are the women? Come here. Let me come up there with y'all.
They said they're about to clear out that group next. Yeah. The one that was over there watching. They were about to arrest us. Yeah, it was by the truck. When I got up, he was standing up and was moving around a little bit. No, I had kind of a Charlie horse, and I was just kind of being a little slapping. We had a lot of bad stuff happening.
I think that people sent us I've never Snapchatted in my life. We had a security consultant talk to us yesterday. You get an account and you swipe down and it gives you that. So.
Anyhow, all right. Take care.
No, not from so high up.
50 people being arrested.
Third year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where are they saying?
On Twitter.
Open Snapchat.
I feel like I got it.
First things first.
There's a little bit of a time lag. Like you can click on them and see what people are broadcasting.
What are you talking about? We're not here to fight each other. We're here to fight these motherfuckers, man. These niggas. No, it's not us. It's us.
Brooklyn Bridge is where we headed. Brooklyn Bridge is where we are. Brooklyn Bridge is where we're headed. Brooklyn Bridge.
On the way over there. What's his name? What's his name? I got my good.
They're protesting peace, and that's all I'm asking. We're protesting peace. We don't have to destroy our community. People don't have to be hurt and arrested.
I work with but this is a city that I think when I moved here,
Yes, San Francisco is sort of
Berkeley and Oakland are tiny. That's got a radical spirit to it. Yeah, I was trying to see this.
sort
Berkeley and Oakland are tiny. That's got a radical spirit to it. Yeah, I was trying to see this. It's like a random people trying to
Yeah. Right. Are you with me?
I didn't get home. I left my house for the first time on Friday.
How she's performing?
Dad, I don't think they're going to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. These guys have been out for a few
This thing's got gas in it.
But I am very good, and I can breathe.
I think most of y'all look at the wrong picture right now. And people there, what y'all looking at, not about fighting right here. You know what I'm saying? It has to be organization. We need structure for generations. This torture is generational torture. And that's not happening once out. You know what I'm saying? We can fight right now. Even if we win, we still lose. It's generation. It's generation. This is not going to happen for years and years. We need organization. We need structure. We need strong minds. Fighting. We need people flying. I need y'all to remember this. I need y'all to remember this.
So most of these people are in New York. This is what the show is. And they were local, or they were every day.
They're not all
What happens if every one of these people go to losing those people from
even the governor said that. So we have to walk back. The state just said there was like outside activities. It's like it's going to believe that Minnesotans are.
You know, there's a lot of pressure. or they're just still struggling to keep on the spot. Are there people over there shooting them, getting in that bus?
We heard 3 bangs and the rest of the
But we can't give up just like that. We can't give up just like that. They working it out, but we gotta stand together for real because we have to be behind them when they finally figure it out. And we can't do it for them. We can't do it for them. What? Black men. Black men. Because they are the you can speak with us. We don't want no
That badge on your shoulder, the money that you use to feed your family, the money you use to build is what causes it. I don't want to, I promise you, I don't want to.
Things first, I'ma say all the words inside my head.
Why do you get arrested? Why do you get Public plaza. Never been this mad in my life, guys. Look at him.
Kyle! Kyle! His hands, nigga! Kyle, man! They're gonna keep beating you with it! Man! Hey, Kyle! Oh! God, I keep getting fucking... Kyle! Get it back! You already saw it. Man, they started beating me. I was like, I ain't doing nothing. Oh, no, they're right. They're beating you with it. Man. Literally, the wall did nothing.
Es para allá, mi.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Can't stand this anymore. We was protesting peacefully. They just wanted to start swinging at everybody. These cops is racist. now, and I'm going back online. I thought I'd check in to see if he's somewhere where we should be.
Endless waves of people tried to reach through us to deliver some rightful justice. Because a lot of these people got run over. A lot of these people's kids were there. A lot of these people's wives were there. I understand why people were so mad, but a man being murdered is what started all of this. People standing by and watching somebody be killed by another group is why we're all in the situation we're in right now. You know, my family has a really long history in Minneapolis. We were a red line family. We moved across a red line. My grandpa served in World War II and migrated here from Paris, Missouri. My uncle was a community. I understand why people are so mad, but a man being murdered is people standing by. You know, my family has a really long history.
Hey. Yeah, am I still live? Okay. It's like 10. Yeah, it's like 10 o'clock here. This is like wrapping up though. They're like loading them in the paddy wagon. I mean, oh, correct. Yeah. Yeah, I can stay up. I mean, I can but you know, if they're still using it, I'll stay up. Cause this will be over in a half hour.
No, he don't notice. Go to the front, do that shit. Where you at? Go to the front, do that shit. Don't hide behind everybody else. Yes, sir. You are extremely close. Get closer. Y'all close to shit. Y'all close to hide behind. Get closer. Get closer. Go to the front. 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 Go to the front.